Hi, welcome to Simply Violin. Because this is the very first episode, I thought that I could just give you a little insight into my philosophy, my approach on playing the violin and on learning the violin. And this philosophy kind of comes down to this. It's divide and conquer. I think it's very important to acknowledge and to appreciate the fact that there are two very distinct and equally important elements that go into playing the violin. One is the technical side, and the other is the musical side. Technique refers to a wide spectrum of things like sound production, intonation, dynamics. Some of you might think, well, dynamics isn't that kind of a musical thing? Like, no, music dynamics is just volume, softer or louder. Yes, it can be used to communicate musical ideas the same way that vibrato can be used to communicate musical gestures or intonation even. But ultimately, to create dynamics, to create a proper forte, to create a proper piano or proper crescendo requires technical understanding and planning. I far too often see musicians approaching technical problems through kind of musical inspiration. Sometimes in various masterclasses I've seen people who want to make a crescendo and they try to encourage it from kind of this abstract or imagination kind of place to kind of encourage the student to think outside of themselves, which is great. But I think that first you must technically know how to make a crescendo, how to properly play louder. If someone's trying to play impressionistic French music and they want to create a color has to be achieved technically, and it's not just imagination. Imagine a cotton ball and this fuzzy this, and all these abstract adjectives or nouns. But I think that if the student is lacking actual understanding of how to create those colors, whether to if in order to create a fuzzy sound or a kind of an impressionistic sound, one might say, okay, you need to go away from the contact point, go closer to the fingerboard, maybe use less pressure, use a faster bow, maybe turn the bow on the side so there's less hair creating sound on the string, maybe use a wider vibrato, slower vibrato. All of these elements that are technical, that require a certain level of understanding. And once the student has that information, yes, then you can try to tap into the imagination and hope that some of these technical things will just come into play automatically. When people think about music, they imagine something that's kind of abstract, something that's intangible or otherworldly. And music definitely is that. Obviously, anything that has the power to stir up emotions across the entire spectrum without any images or without any words obviously has some kind of magic to it. But the act of playing music, the act of playing an instrument, I don't think should be abstract. I think that it's very possible to put things into very simple terms, make things very clear. And I think that when you do put things into simple terms, it maximizes your chances of reaching your potential. So I gave you some of the technical examples. Some musical examples are a little bit more difficult to pinpoint because they're intangible, but we're talking about inspiration, energy, commitment to the phrasing, commitment to the interpretation, or even the interpretation. That in itself is a little bit tricky because it's also kind of technical. So much of the interpretation is dictated by harmony and by structure and the instrumentation and all kinds of things that are technical. But of course, if it was purely technical, then we would only need one version of everything. We would just be Naxos, because they only record one piece once. But that's silly. How many times have you heard Tchaikovsky concerto and it's just played 1,000 different ways and they're all equally valid? And these interpretations are very personal. And this in itself is a kind of musical thing to understand how much of your instinct can you trust, and how much of it has to be informed. It's not that part of it is not simple, but still, I think it's something that can be discussed. It shouldn't be swept under the rug. So that's kind of my approach to learning the violin, dividing and conquering. And so it's very important to understand when there's something that's going wrong, whether it's a technical problem that needs to be approached from a technical perspective, or whether it's a musical thing. And another reason that I love this this kind of philosophy is because it kind of parallels the way that we are as human beings. You know, we as people also have two sides to us. We have the materialistic, the physical side, you know, the thing that gets hungry, the thing that gets cold. And then we have a more kind of spiritual side to us, the thing that doesn't care so much about the kind of watch that we're wearing, but more about kind of fulfilling our potential, expressing ourselves artistically and creatively, even if it's through a mathematical equation or some kind of scientific innovation, or every person has their unique type of expression. And you know, so many times you see people trying to appease that spiritual side of themselves with materialistic things by eating, you know, nice food, chocolate or whatever, or buying nice things. And of course it makes you feel good because it appeases a little part of the physical side of it, but it doesn't address the real problem, which is something else altogether. So that's why I think that it's a very valid philosophy, because it functions in all kind of perspectives. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say in this first episode. If what I've said so far sounds interesting to you, or you have an interest in violin and you'd like to kind of be in a network of people around the world that kind of think about that too, subscribe to the channel, like the channel. If you have things or topics that you'd like to hear discussed, different technical problems, even a specific spot in a piece that you're working on that you'd like a different perspective, maybe, who knows, leave it in the comment section. Or if you disagree with things that I've said, or you think I've left things out, put a comment, and I promise to read it and sort of respond to it if I can in a following video. There's going to be several videos to come. The first thing that I'm going to take on is the most important part about playing the violin, which is producing a good sound. Not just a good sound, but the optimum sound. How is it produced? Ultimately, I would love for this channel to be a kind of resource and sort of a chance for us to interact with one another. All of us, crazy violin lovers and music lovers, violinists. And at the end of the day, we're all students, no matter whether you're today's your first day, or whether you've been playing violin for 25 plus years like me. It's a never-ending process. It's constantly evolving, and I hope to take on all kinds of difficulties, like how to play in tune, what is intonation, how to vibrate, how to pick fingerings for music, all the way to like how to perform on stage, how to deal with stage fright, how to deal with auditions. All of these things are often kind of dismissed, just saying that they're difficult. You just have to work at it, and eventually, you put in those 10,000 hours and you'll get there. And unfortunately, things aren't that simple. And right now, it makes me think of the Olympics, because they're on right now, and every single athlete that goes into the Olympics has coaches. They have trainers, and these are people who are at the peak of their sport, and yet they still have people who help them, who guide them, who verbalize things that they may otherwise not be aware of. And there's no reason why musicians, professional or otherwise, shouldn't have the same kind of luxury. So I hope that this channel may evolve into something like that. I realize that as of now, you probably don't even know who I am. I know who I am, but you probably don't know who I am, and I haven't talked about that much just because that's pretty boring for me and probably for you. But I will leave a link to the about section of my website, and I encourage you to go and kind of, I guess, read about who I am, just so that it validates the points that I'm making. I'm not making it up. I've had some pretty remarkable teachers in my life, and I've studied in some pretty amazing environments, and that's one of the reasons why I feel it's important to talk about these things, because I feel very privileged to have picked up some really, really good information from some highly experienced people, and there's no reason to hoard it, you know. So yeah, like the video, subscribe to the channel so that you see all the next things that come up, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.